A gentle June breeze swept through the streets of Cambridge as dusk approached. It was the season when hydrangeas bloomed in vibrant colors. Inside of Blossoms and Dreams, Jennifer smiled softly as she added the final flower to the bouquet in her hands. The pale pink rose petals emanated an elegant beauty that seemed to forecast her own wedding, just 2 days away. The shop was filled with seasonal flowers in various colors, their sweet fragrance wafting through the air. 5 years since opening, this shop that she had managed single-handedly had become a well-known florist in the area. She had chosen this location near Harvard Square, keeping her mother's words close to heart: do first-class work in a first-class location. Mom would have been so happy if she were here. Murmuring to herself, she pulled an old book of flower meanings from the shelf to make final confirmations for the wedding flowers. As her fingers turned the pages, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. This book had belonged to her mother. Since losing her to cancer 13 years ago, this book had become Jennifer's guide. Until the very end, her mother had said, "I wanted to see your happy wedding day." Every time she remembered those words, her heart tightened. She thought of Michael, whom she had met a year and a half ago at her friend Sarah's wedding. After the solemn ceremony at St. Paul's Church, he had quietly approached her at the reception held at Harvest Restaurant. She could still vividly recall how he had come to order a bouquet, wearing a gentle smile that seemed incongruous with his title as vice president of an investment bank. He said it was for his mother, if I remember correctly. At that time, Michael had been looking for a bouquet for his mother's birthday. The arrangement of white Casablanca lilies and blue delphiniums expressed his deep affection for his mother, Martha. Jennifer had found herself drawn to his sincere demeanor. She felt a familiar warmth in his stories about attending church with his mother every Sunday and spending holidays together. She remembered meeting Martha for the first time as if it were yesterday. A stately house in a quiet residential area of Chestnut Hill. The well-tended front garden was abloom with roses of various colors. When she entered, Martha had welcomed her with open arms. She was an elegant woman, her pearl necklace gleaming refinedly. "Welcome, Jennifer. You're just as lovely as Michael described." During dinner, Martha had served one elaborate dish after another. Lobster thermidor and homemade clam chowder. "This is Michael's favorite," she had said, urging, "Please, eat more," and immediately refilling wine glasses when they emptied. Though Jennifer had felt somewhat uncomfortable with the excessive attentiveness, she had tried to dismiss the feeling. Surely it was just an expression of love for an only son, she had thought. But she could never forget the strange gleam in Martha's eyes when she had said, "Michael is my everything." "Is everything on track for the day after tomorrow?" Martha had called this morning to make final confirmations for the wedding. "Yes, everything's going according to plan." "Wonderful. I've prepared a special wine. I've been saving it for years, just for the toast. It's a top-quality California Cabernet I selected specifically for this day." There was an odd undertone to Martha's voice. Though Jennifer felt a slight unease in her heart, she pushed it aside in favor of happy anticipation. She paused in arranging the bouquet and looked out the window. The sky had begun to dim, seeming to herald the beginning of a new life. The June sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Paul's Church, illuminating the altar. The interior of the historic church, with over 100 years of history, was elegantly decorated with pure white calla lilies and pale pink roses. As the majestic sounds of the pipe organ filled the air, Jennifer began her walk down the aisle, supported by her Uncle Thomas. In the front row, her Aunt Mary, who had been like a mother to her since childhood, smiled through tears. Her wedding dress with white lace trim harmonized perfectly with the pearl pendant her mother had left her. Something old was her mother's pendant, something new was the dress, something borrowed was her aunt's lace handkerchief, and something blue was a blue ribbon tucked into her shoe. Her respect for tradition made this special day even more meaningful. Before these witnesses, I vow. There was a slight tremor in Michael's voice. His profile in the navy tuxedo showed an unusually tense expression. In the front row, Martha watched the ceremony with a hard expression. Her usual smile full of maternal affection had disappeared, replaced by a harsh light in her eyes. The occasional glances she cast at her son revealed an unusual obsession. As words of blessing rang out, Jennifer's heart was filled with joyful elation. Now she too would become part of a new family. The happy wedding her mother had wanted to see. That dream was about to become reality. During the exchange of rings, Jennifer didn't miss how Martha's expression momentarily contorted. The Harvest restaurant, serving as the reception venue, was beautifully decorated with seasonal flowers Jennifer had carefully selected. The decorations, centered around hydrangeas and roses, evoked the arrival of early summer. The champagne tower sparkled, and the wedding cake, crafted by a Konditormeister, stood like a work of art. Warm applause echoed through the room as the newlyweds entered. Through the restaurant's large windows, the setting sun could be seen sinking into the Charles River. Its soft light seemed to embrace the entire venue as if offering its blessing. Everyone, thank you for gathering here on our special day. As Michael began his speech, Martha quietly rose from her seat and approached with wine. The deep purple-red liquid swayed gently in the crystal glass. The delicate cuts in the glass created beautiful patterns of light under the illumination. Jennifer, this is a special wine. I've been saving it for years. Martha's voice rang sweeter than usual. There was something ceremonial about the tension in her movements. Thank you, Martha. Once you drink this, we'll truly be family. Here, together. Before Jennifer could understand the meaning behind those words, she had accepted the glass. The aroma of the wine Martha poured was indeed special. Though she had heard it was a top-quality California Cabernet, there was something peculiar about its bouquet. As the toast began, Jennifer raised her glass. The moment she took a sip of wine, her vision began to blur. The room's lights began to swirl and distort, voices growing distant. Her knees weakened, and she nearly collapsed to the floor. Her white wedding dress spread out like a large flower petal. Jennifer. Michael rushed over in alarm. A wave of agitation spread through the guests, screams rising. Panic engulfed the venue. Among it all, only Martha maintained an eerily calm expression. There was even a slight satisfied smile playing at her lips. It's all right, the wine must have been too strong, yes, just a matter of feeling unwell. Those were the last words Jennifer heard before her consciousness sank into deep darkness. In the distance, she could hear her Aunt Mary screaming. The sound of an ambulance siren faded away. In the emergency room at Massachusetts General Hospital. As doctors hurried back and forth, Jennifer's consciousness began to return. White ceiling. The smell of disinfectant. The sound of an IV drip. A strange sensation, as if in a distant dream. Where is this? Just then, a doctor burst into the room with an alarmed expression. The hem of his white coat swayed dramatically. Call the police immediately. This isn't an accident. The blood test results are in. These are clear symptoms of poisoning. At those words, Michael's face turned pale, and his whole body began to shake. What do you mean? Michael's trembling voice echoed through the silent hospital room. The door to the room opened, and two detectives entered. They introduced themselves as Detective Harris and Detective Collins. Ms. Wilson, how are you feeling? Jennifer, still lying in bed, hadn't fully recovered yet. There was still a slight pain in her arm where the IV needle was inserted. Her pure white wedding dress had been packed away in a hospital paper bag, replaced by a thin blue hospital gown. Yes, somehow. A near-lethal amount of poison was detected in the wine used at the wedding. Detective Harris's quiet voice froze the air in the room. Detective Collins, holding medical records, continued. The type of poison used is difficult to obtain without medical connections. Mrs. Martha Brown used to work as a nurse, correct? Those words made Jennifer's chest tighten. Martha had served as the head nurse at this hospital until 3 years ago. She would have had deep knowledge of pharmaceuticals and extensive connections. The hydrangeas in the vase in the corner of the room showed the same color as the wedding decorations from yesterday. Mother, she wouldn't. Michael's voice was breaking. His left hand, where his wedding ring gleamed, trembled slightly. Jennifer watched him with mixed emotions as he had visited the hospital room countless times since last night, tormented by guilt. Though he should be someone she loved, even his presence felt distant now. Mr. Brown, is there anything you can tell us about your mother? In response to Detective Harris's question, Michael heaved a deep sigh. Mother, she changed a bit after father passed away. She became more possessive of me, but this. Just then, hurried footsteps could be heard from the hallway. The sound of white sneakers echoed in the corridor, accompanied by smaller footsteps. Please wait. I have something to say. A young woman rushed into the room, holding the hand of a small girl. Though slight in build, her eyes held strong determination. Dressed in a navy dress, she had the modest air of a local elementary school teacher. I'm Emma Taylor. In college, Michael and I, and this child. Beside her, a 6-year-old girl who introduced herself as Lily showed an anxious expression. With her brown hair adorned with a pink ribbon, large eyes, and fine features, she somewhat resembled Michael. The little girl in her blue gingham dress looked as lovely as a doll. Emma, why are you here? The color drained from Michael's face. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and his hand gripped the edge of the desk tightly. Let's stop hiding. That person, Mrs. Martha, has been threatening us. Emma's confession rang out in the silent hospital room. Lily, born to the college sweetheart 6 years ago. Martha had persistently tried to hide their existence. Mrs. Martha said our existence would hinder Michael's future. She bought our silence with monthly support payments. Emma's voice trembled. Lily held her mother's hand tightly, looking around anxiously. Outside the window, an ambulance siren wailed in the distance. That's not all. Detective Collins pulled out new documents. Multiple suspicious drugs and photographs of Jennifer were found in Martha Brown's home. Many of the photos had X marks. And there were surveillance photos of Emma and Lily as well. The evidence photos Detective Collins presented had dates and locations meticulously noted. Picking up and dropping off at kindergarten, playing in the park, shopping at the supermarket. Every aspect of daily life had been obsessively recorded. At that moment, the hospital room door burst open. Martha entered in a disheveled state. Her expensive two-piece suit was wrinkled, her necklace askew. Her usually perfectly arranged hair was now completely disheveled. She looked like a different person. I'll explain everything, but first. With trembling hands, she opened her handbag and took out a small bottle. Pearl-like white pills could be seen through the glass. Put that down. Detective Harris commanded in a firm voice. A nurse rushed forward and took the bottle. This is atropine sulfate. The nurse's voice shook. Martha collapsed into a sitting position. The hem of her expensive suit spread across the hospital floor. I did the right thing. Michael is my son. He can't be happy without me. Lily should have been the real family. Martha spoke in a deranged voice. Her eyes no longer showed any trace of reason. It was hard to believe this was the same person who had saved many patients' lives as the head nurse of this hospital. Detective Harris quietly approached and took out silver handcuffs. Michael watched in a daze as Martha was led away. Emma embraced her daughter, gently covering Lily's ears. Jennifer sighed deeply while looking at her arm where the 4-needle was inserted. The wedding that should have been filled with happiness. The pure white wedding dress, words of blessing, dreamed future. All those memories now poisoned her heart. What will become of us? No one could answer Jennifer's whispered words. The setting sun over the Charles River cast a red stain on the white hospital walls. The same sunset as yesterday. But she keenly felt that nothing would ever be the same again. In the interrogation room at Cambridge Police Station. The clock on the gray wall struck 3 in the afternoon. Early summer sunlight streamed through the window, casting unnatural shadows on the table. Martha sat in the hard chair, staring blankly ahead. Her former elegant demeanor had vanished, replaced by a disheveled appearance of someone entirely different. Can you tell us everything? Detective Harris's voice carried strength within its gentleness. In the 2 weeks since the wedding incident, the investigation had steadily progressed. The mountain of evidence grew daily, revealing items that told the story of Martha's abnormal obsession. I did the right thing. Martha's voice had lost its former dignity. Her expensive branded clothes were now wrinkled and lifeless. Marks from handcuffs remained on her wrists, and her once manicured nails had grown wild. I couldn't bear someone taking my son away. Lily should have been the real family. Those words froze the air in the interrogation room. Martha grabbed the water glass with trembling hands. The sound of ice cubes touching stood out in the strange silence. It all started 5 years ago when my husband passed away. Michael was my everything. But gradually, he started drifting away from me. Martha began speaking as if reminiscing. Her voice broke occasionally as she traced past memories. The shock 6 years ago when she learned of her son's secret child, Lily, born to his college girlfriend Emma. When she learned that truth, something broke inside her. At first, I didn't want to accept it, but when I saw Lily's photo, her eyes looked exactly like Michael's when he was young. Martha's fingers moved minutely on the table, as if gathering past memories. I was desperate. To protect Michael's future, I silenced Emma with money, arranged monthly support payments from my savings, but he stopped listening to me completely. The fluorescent light cast cold shadows on Martha's face. Her expression was like an eerie mask, mixed with sadness and anger. Then Jennifer appeared. That woman trying to steal my son. Martha's voice suddenly turned cold. Her eyes fixed, and her expression changed. The mask of an elegant lady fell away, revealing twisted obsession underneath. She was going to ruin my perfect family plan with my precious Michael. I couldn't forgive that. Martha's voice gradually rose, unable to contain her emotional surge. Her fingertips trembled minutely, her unsightly grown nails casting sinister shadows under the fluorescent light. Getting the poison was easy. Using my connections from my nursing days. I thought mixing it with California wine would fool everyone. The wine's color and aroma should have perfectly concealed the presence of the drug. The interrogators mechanically took notes of her confession. However, their hands moved faster than usual, unable to hide their tension. A heavy atmosphere hung in the hospital hallway. Michael, called to hear his mother's confession, now stood frozen beyond the soundproof glass. His suit buttons were fastened crookedly, his tie askew. The former sharp appearance of an investment banker had vanished. Why would Mother? His voice was an anguished cry that reached no one. Beside him stood Emma. In her simple navy dress, complex emotions showed in her eyes. 6 years of forced silence and the suffering it brought were etched in her expression. Michael leaned against the wall for support. His wedding ring still gleamed on his hand. The happy vows from just 2 weeks ago now tormented him as a cruel irony. Did you know about Lily? Jennifer's question from the hospital room had deeply pierced Michael's heart. Even while receiving info, her eyes looked straight at Michael. Those eyes no longer held a trace of love. He lost his words, just staring at the floor. His expensive leather shoes reflected the impersonal light of the hospital hallway. That's enough. Jennifer's voice rang out quietly but firmly. Still seated in her wheelchair, she looked straight at Michael, watching the pitiful figure of the man she once loved. I've decided to divorce. Those words made the air in the hallway tremble. A slight pain shot through her arm receiving the new medication drip. The lies, the betrayal, and the attempted murder. I can't take it anymore. Let's end this marriage that never really began. Michael stared at Jennifer, lost for words. His eyes mixed with regret and resignation. His shoulders trembled slightly. The trial began in the early summer weather. A heavy atmosphere filled the solemn courtroom of the Boston District Court. The judge's voice echoing in the courtroom. Expert witnesses taking the stand. And Martha's distraught appearance. Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare. I will now report the results of the defendant's psychiatric evaluation. The specialist's testimony rang out in the silent courtroom. The defendant shows signs of severe dependent personality disorder and early symptoms of schizophrenia. Her abnormal attachment to her son appears to have worsened following her husband's death. A small murmur spread through the courtroom. Defendant Martha Brown. For the crimes of attempted murder and forcible obstruction of business, you are sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, psychiatric treatment will be mandated. As the verdict was delivered, the courtroom filled with a heavy sigh. The fear of losing someone she loved had twisted her mind. Michael watched his mother being led away, holding back tears. Her back, having lost its former dignity, appeared small and shrunk. Emma held Lily close, closing her eyes as if offering a small prayer. Jennifer sat quietly in the cold wooden chair of the courtroom, eyes closed. A single tear rolling down her cheek caught the light. A bitter ending that couldn't be called victory. But now everything would end. No one else would get hurt. The setting sun over the Charles River streamed through the courtroom window. The childhood dream of yearning for a pure white wedding dress. All of it now fading away like a fleeting illusion. Now I can be free too. Jennifer's whispered words dissolved quietly into the courtroom, unheard by anyone. Scars would remain. But she quietly stood up, searching for yet unseen hope in tomorrow's life. 1 year later, in early summer. Soft morning light streamed into the new Blossoms and Dreams shop facing Harvard Square. Various colored flowers filled the shop, their sweet fragrance wafting through the air. In the shop, now twice its former size, Jennifer was finishing a new bouquet. This arrangement is really lovely. The speaker was a middle-aged female regular customer who delivered flowers to the DV shelter every week. Faint scars remained on her hands as she received the bouquet. Thank you. Today I focused on hydrangeas as a symbol of hope. Jennifer's voice carried a depth that hadn't been there before. She now served as an important member of a victim support group. At monthly meetings, she connected with women who had similar experiences. Since that day, I've truly realized anew the healing power of flowers. The drug's aftereffects had taken half a year to fully recover from. During that time, her Aunt Mary had nursed her devotedly. Now, even the memories of that day had become fuel that made her stronger. In the back of the shop, there was a small counseling space. A place where victims of domestic violence and abuse could talk safely. A space where wounded hearts could heal gradually, surrounded by flowers. "Mommy, these flowers are pretty." A clear child's voice rang out. Turning around, she saw Lily standing in the shop with her mother Emma. The little girl in her light blue dress still showed her adorable smile. "Lily, no school today." "Nope. I came to buy flowers with Mommy today." Emma watched her daughter with a peaceful expression. After the divorce mediation, she had finally gained true freedom. Child support from Michael was now being paid properly and officially. "My new teacher is very kind. She teaches us how to grow flowers too." The shop filled with bright atmosphere from Lily's innocent chatter. She now knew about her father's existence. Michael came to see his daughter once a month. It was a quiet time mixed with atonement and love. Martha was receiving treatment at the State Psychiatric Center. With a confirmed diagnosis of schizophrenia, she was under specialized care. When Michael visited, she only repeated one phrase over and over, "I'm sorry." No one could verify the true meaning of those words. A tragedy caused by twisted love. It painfully reflected the possibility of darkness that everyone harbors in the depths of their hearts. Martha's house in the upscale Boston suburbs now stood empty. The garden, once perfectly maintained, was now overgrown with weeds. Yet the rose bushes that Martha had carefully tended still bloomed beautifully this year. "Jennifer, here." Emma handed over a photograph. It was a newspaper article announcing her engagement to a young man she had met through hospital volunteer work. "Congratulations. This time, you'll surely find happiness." Jennifer offered words of blessing from her heart. She herself was slowly developing a bond with a lawyer she had met through support activities. Someone who understood her wounded heart. The happiness of nurturing a relationship one step at a time, without rushing. In the evening, after closing the shop, Jennifer walked along the Charles River. Hydrangea petals reflected in the water surface gleaming with the western sun. The memories that had poisoned her life a year ago had now been transformed into new strength. "Mom, are you watching over me?" Her whispered words dissolved into the gentle evening breeze. Tomorrow would begin another new day. In a space surrounded by flowers, healing wounded souls and nurturing new hope. That was the path she had chosen. The street lights of Harvard Square began to light up, one by one. Jennifer took a deep breath. The air was filled with the sweet scent of hydrangeas. This year's flowers showed particularly beautiful colors. As if celebrating the beginning of a new life.